Alrighty. Hello everyone, welcome to the PADI Snorkel Guide Certification course. I'm Gabby and I'll be your instructor for this course. A little bit about me. I've been a PADI instructor for the past 2 years, but I've been diving for over 8 years now. I've also lived here in Hawaii for 2.5 years, and I'm really excited to share this course with you guys. All right, so let's go over what the next 2 days are gonna look like so you know what to expect. We'll kick things off with the 30-minute course orientation, which is basically gonna be this video, where I'll give you a rundown of everything we'll be covering. Then we'll dive into the roles and responsibilities of a snorkel guide, basically what's expected of you and how to leave a safe, fun excursion. After that, we'll go over organizing a snorkel excursion, covering everything from planning to logistics. Once we wrap up the classroom portion, we'll head to the water for the hands-on part. That would be skills and stamina, just to assess your comfort and endurance. Snorkeling and skin diving skills, making sure your techniques are solid, rescuing skills, which is practicing essential, safety procedures. These are all performance requirements and you'll need to pass all of them to complete the course. Day 2 starts with snorkeling equipment, where we'll go over gear selection, maintenance, and any remaining parts of the presentation. This will also include care for the environment, focusing on how to be an eco-friendly guide. Next, we'll go over emergency procedures, talking about risk management and response strategies. And before we get back in the water, you'll complete a snorkel guide knowledge review quiz, just to test what you've learned so far, and we'll go over any missed questions together. Then we'll bring it all together for the practical workshops, which are giving a briefing and running a snorkel excursion. So let's talk about the goals, materials, and equipment you'll need for this course. The goal for this course is to build your knowledge and skills so you can confidently guide snorkelers. You'll learn how to safely organize and lead snorkel excursions, making sure everyone has a fun and safe experience. We'll also focus on strengthening your rescue and emergency response skills so you're prepared to handle any situation that might come up. For materials, we'll be using the PADI Snorkel Guide course notes, which have all the key information that you'll need. And in the appendix, you'll find all the extra paperwork required to be an independent PADI Snorkel Guide professional. Things like waivers and other important forms will be in there. Now let's talk about equipment that you'll need. As a PADI Snorkel Guide, you'll need the right gear, starting with the basics, a mask, snorkel, and fins. You'll also need a flotation device like a snorkel vest or a wetsuit to help with buoyancy. And finally, you'll need at least one audible emergency surface signaling device like a whistle or an air horn so you can alert others in case of an emergency. All right, so let's talk about what we need to do to complete this course. PADI has a list of prerequisites and performance requirements that you'll need to meet. First, the prerequisite to enroll in the PADI Snorkel Guide course, you need to be at least 18 years old and have current CPR first aid training within the past 24 months. Now, to successfully complete the course, you'll need to pass a few key performance requirements. First up, you'll need to pass a knowledge review, pretty straightforward. Then there's the stamina assessment, which includes a 15-minute tread and float and an 800-yard snorkel swim. You'll also have to complete the snorkeling and skin diving skills, which means doing a surface dive, swimming underwater, and properly ascending and clearing your snorkel. Next, you'll need to demonstrate rescue skills. That includes things like assisting someone with leg cramps, helping tired or panicked snorkelers, and performing a full rescue of an unresponsive snorkeler. I'll go into more detail about the rescue exercises later on. And then finally, the last part of the course is completing the 2 practical workshops, giving a briefing and leading a snorkel excursion. By meeting all these requirements, you'll develop the skills that you need to be a certified PADI Snorkel Guide. So let's get into it. So what it takes to become a certified PADI Snorkel Guide and what you need to do to keep that certification active, you'll need to successfully complete and meet all the performance requirements like I discussed which were the skills assessment, knowledge review, and practical workshops. You will then submit the PADI Snorkel Guide application to your PADI regional headquarters once you've completed all the requirements. The first time, I'll submit it for you, but I'm going to walk you guys through it. So next year, when you need to renew, you'll know exactly how to do it yourself. Once your application is approved, PADI regional headquarters will notify you and send you your official certificate. Now, let's talk about what you need to do to maintain your certification. You'll need to complete complete an annual renewal application every year and pay membership dues to stay active. I just mentioned that before. Once you renew, you'll get an updated snorkel certificate. Just a quick process to keep everything current. One more important note, since you'll be a PADI professional, it's always a good idea to have professional liability insurance. While it's not required, it's highly recommended for snorkel guides. If your employer's insurance covers you, that's fine, but having your own individual policy gives an extra protection. In some cases, depending on the coverage limits, an insurance company will prioritize covering damage for the employer and the victim first. If there's not enough coverage left, you might not be fully protected, which is obviously not ideal. So if you have any questions about getting coverage, reach out to Dan and they'll help you figure out, the best policy for you. All right, for this part, I need everyone to pull up your PADI Snorkel Guide course notes. I've sent them to your emails so you have them ready for reference as we go through this section. While you're grabbing those, I'll go ahead and start breaking it down for you. So as a PADI Snorkel Guide, your main job is to organize and lead safe, enjoyable snorkel excursions. Let's break it down into the responsibilities. You'll be organizing and leading snorkel excursions, basically making sure everything runs smoothly from start to finish. You'll be supervising snorkelers, keeping an eye on everyone and making sure they're comfortable in the water. You'll assist with equipment, helping people the right fit and make sure they know how to use gear properly. You'll be giving safety briefings, covering things like marine life interactions and environmental awareness and water conditions. You'll help with water entry and exit, just making sure everyone gets in and out of the water safely. And you'll be monitoring the snorkelers, both in and out of the water, keeping track of their, comfort and safety in the water. And most importantly, you'll be responding to emergencies if anything comes up. One important thing to note is this certification only qualifies you to lead snorkel tours. So you cannot teach or assist in any PADI courses. Your job is strictly about leading and supervising snorkel tours safely. If you have any questions about that, let me know. The next 3 responsibilities of a snorkel guide we'll be talking about include guide and assist, code of conduct, and the youth leader's commitment. So as a PADI snorkel guide, your role is way more than just leading an excursion. You're there to guide, assist, and make sure your snorkelers have a fun, safe, and memorable experience. So you want to make it enjoyable. You're setting the vibe, making it fun, and making sure people are engaged. Help them stay comfortable. Some people, might be nervous, so it's on you to make them feel at ease in the water. Help them understand what they're seeing. Point out marine life, share some cool facts, and make it an experience, not just a swim. You'll also want to be managing their risks. So your top priority is safety. So you're constantly watching and assessing and making sure everyone is okay. And every group is different. So it's important to adapt each excursion based on the skill level of the people that you're guiding. And how do you do that? So assessing their abilities before getting in the water. This can be as simple as, asking something like, how are you feeling about getting in the water today? Or have you ever snorkeled before? Those are just 2 questions that usually tell you everything you need to know about how they're going to handle the water. And you can also choose a location that matches their skill level. So don't take, beginners into heavy current or poor visibility. Give them clear instructions during your safety briefings so they know exactly what to do and what to expect. Once you're in the water, just keep your eyes on them. And the conditions, and watch for changes in currents, the waves, or the visibility. If you guide the right way, your snorkelers will feel safe, confident, and actually enjoy the experience instead of worrying about what's going on. All right, for this section, go ahead and pull up your PADI Snorkel Guide Code of Conduct in the appendix of your course notes. So as a guide, you're not just leading excursions, you're a professional and an ocean ambassador. People are trusting you to keep them safe and give them a great experience. Let's break it down for the code of conduct. Basically, it comes down to 3 main things. Stay safe, respect everyone, and lead by example. By keeping everyone safe, don't take unnecessary risks. You've got people depending on you, and nothing is worth compromising safety. Respecting everyone is just like making sure that you're respecting your group and the environment. And leading by example is you set the tone. If you're not acting responsibly, your snorkelers will follow. And if anything does happen, whether it's a minor issue or a serious incident, you have to report it to PADI headquarters right away. You can do that by filling out an incident report on their website. And by sticking to these standards, you help create a snorkeling environment that's safe and inclusive and responsible for everyone. All right, next up we have the youth leader's commitment. This is here to protect both the kids and you as a professional. To sum it up, it basically says the child's safety, health, and well-being always come first. no exceptions. You need to provide proper supervision during all activities. Kids require a little bit of extra attention, so stay alert. And always meet with the parents or guardians beforehand so they know what to expect and how you can, address any concerns. When you're leading a snorkel with kids, their safety is the priority, and you need to handle everything professionally. Also, important to know, if you violate any parts of this commitment or any of the other codes of conduct, it can lead to termination of your PADI membership. So when you get a chance, just take a minute, read through the youth leader's commitment in your course notes, just so you're familiar with all the details. Moving on to the key elements of the snorkel tour, which include preparation, paperwork, conditions, equipment, and briefing and supervision. Planning and preparation are everything when it comes to running a smooth snorkel tour. Before every trip, you'll always gonna want to check the conditions, think about the group size, and get your gear ready. Just be prepared for anything. When you're checking the conditions, know what the weather, currents, and visibility are gonna be like. For the group size, just make sure the location and plan match their experience level. And when you're getting their gear ready, just make sure to double check that everything is good to go. Having a plan in case something doesn't go expected is always good to have in place, and a little prep goes a long way in making sure the excursion is safe, fun, and stress-free. You're also in charge of making sure all participants complete the necessary paperwork before the tours, even if someone else is handling it. Those include the liability releases, any boat waivers or parental signatures for minors. It's important that participants don't alter or cross out anything on these forms. If they refuse to sign, just let them know they won't be able to participate in the snorkeling activity. If anyone needs to, you can have them download the diver medical form on the uhms.org to take to their doctors, and that should be on the form that I sent in your email. Also, don't forget to remind everyone to avoid alcohol or any intoxicants before and during the tour. That's pretty obvious, but just have to make a note of it. It's okay to also talk about general fitness for snorkelers. Don't give any medical advice. If someone has concerns about medical conditions and how it might, affect their ability to snorkel, just refer them to their physician. You can find all the required forms in your course note appendix, just to be familiar with that. Before we start the excursion, you'll also need to assess both the environment and your participants so you can figure out the best way to supervise them. So first, check the snorkeling environment. Just make sure that the water conditions are good, visibility should be decent, the current is manageable, and there shouldn't be any, hazards around. Next, you'll want to evaluate your guests. You'll want to assess their comfort level, experience, and their ability to swim. This will help you decide whether to supervise it from the boat or if it's better to get in the water with them. Ideally, you'll want to get in the water with them to guide them more directly. It's always preferred. Then when it comes to equipment, make sure that everything's clean, functional, fully assembled before you even get in the water, and just double check your mask, snorkels, and fins, or any flotation device or any other gear, just to make sure everything's in good working condition for everyone. All right, now let's go over the essential snorkeling equipment that you need to be familiar with. So obviously we have masks. Just make sure everything properly fits. Teach snorkelers how to defog their mask. If the defogging solution gets rinsed off during the session, just remind them how to reapply it. Showing them how to drain any water from the mask without having to take it off completely is also great. Snorkels. Make sure that the snorkel is properly attached to the mask. Show snorkelers how to clear the snorkel by doing our sharp exhale or by lifting their face out of the water to drain it. Next, we have fins. Some fins are worn with bare feet, while others can be worn with booties. There are also hand fins and webbed gloves for those that have, limited leg abilities. So those are just some options. Next, you have buoyancy aids. These can include exposure suits like wetsuits or snorkeling vests, or any floats. We also have rescue aids. These may include some buoyancy devices for assisting swimmers in distress, like floats or rescue tubes. You also have some weights. Weights aren't usually needed for snorkeling, but they might be used for some more advanced snorkelers, and always having an audible signaling device. Snorkelers should have something like a whistle so they can alert others if they need. And just make sure to double check all the equipment that is properly set up before heading out on the tour. So as a snorkel guide, having the right equipment is really important to manage and just make sure everything is safe for your group. So we can break it down into 3 categories. First one is going to be management equipment. Those tools are to help you stay organized and effectively oversee the excursion. So some examples of those would be a clipboard or a roster, just to keep track of everyone. You can also use binoculars or polarized sunglasses just to see better, and you can use site maps or slates just for easy communication or even navigation. Next will be our emergency response equipment. So you want to be prepared for emergencies because this is critical as a part of your role. Always have the following things on hand, like an emergency oxygen, a first aid kit, a rescue float or a life ring, a marine radio or a phone, and you can also have a blanket to treat shock or hypothermia. And some other useful equipment. These are just extras and could come in handy during your tours. Things like a toolkit with a spare mask and fin straps, a surface marker buoy just to keep the group visible. You could also use individual flotation devices like snorkeling vests to just provide some added buoyancy for those that that need it. You can also use a rescue float or a life ring for the tour. For you as the guide, you can also wear bright swimsuits or rash guards just to be easily identified to the snorkelers so they can recognize you quickly. It just makes it easier for you to maintain control of the group. When you're responsible for any gear, it's super important that you just take care of it. Make sure to clean everything after every use, you guys know, and regularly check for any damage. You don't want to send snorkelers out with broken gear, so staying on top of maintenance is really important. All right, when you're guiding a snorkel tour, you want to position yourself where you can keep a close eye on everyone, whether that's from the boat, from shore, or right in the water with them. Just make sure that they've got the right gear and are paired up for safety. Just know what to look for. Use floats or lines to help out and always, stay connected or know where the boat or shore is. Just keep track of your group. Just, make sure you've got clear communication signals that you've discussed in your briefing. When it's time to get out of the water, just help them out, do a final head count, and wrap things up with a quick debrief. For this section, I'd like you to go through your snorkel briefing guidelines in your course notes appendix. This sheet covers all the key points that you need to go over during your briefing. You'll be using this as a reference for your practical assessment, which is a part of the final test required to earn your certification. Like we talked about before, the things that you should cover in your course briefing include boat safety, snorkeling equipment, how to use it, and some points of interest, like where they're allowed to go. Talk about the reef, local marine life, and any hazards like currents, boat traffic, all that good stuff. You'll also want to discuss the plan for the day, where you guys are going, and how to get in and out of the boat or, wherever you guys are doing the tour. Make sure to let your snorkelers know the turn back guidelines, like for time or if they're getting tired or cold. You can also define buddy teams, like a group structure. Just let them know where you'll be, like if you're going to be in the boat, or if you're going to be in front of them at all times, or if you're going to be positioned behind them. And you can also remind them to use a buddy system for breath hold diving. You'll also want to go over hand signals and emergency procedures, and just remind snorkelers to stay within their limits and close to the guide or their dive buddy. And last but not least, just make sure they understand roll call procedures and to answer only for themselves. So when you're checking out the site, always make sure to just assess the conditions before the snorkel trip and include that in your briefing. It's important that snorkelers can, make an informed decision based on their abilities, and that there's an easy way for them to exit the water if they need to. If things get sketchy, don't hesitate to cancel or change the site. Just keep an eye on the weather and the tides, the currents, the waves, all that good stuff, and just make sure that the conditions match your group's experience level. For mixed groups, aim for calmer waters. If you're with a more advanced group, they can handle some tougher conditions. You got to pick the best way to supervise based on your group. So based on your group and the conditions, whether that's being in the water with them or from a spot where you've got a good view. Keep an eye on everyone. Just make sure buddy pairs are sticking together. Keeping the newer snorkelers together and close is always a great idea. You can also use markers and stay in shallower areas where you can. And you can also switch up supervising if you need to. So if you have 2 guides, you can switch that up. I want you guys to always just remember to lead by example. So don't do any deep or long breath hold dives unless it's absolutely necessary. And if you've got any extra gear like a weight belt, just make sure to let them know why you're using it. Now, let's talk about what we'll be doing in the water. First, you'll need to do a 15-minute tread or float. You'll be in a swimsuit with no aids, just you treading water or floating there. Then we'll do a quick break before you dive into the next one. The next one will be the 800-yard snorkel swim. For this, you'll need to swim with your mask, fins, and snorkel and swimsuit with no floats. The goal is to swim 800 yards nonstop in 15 minutes or less. I'll set up this course with a throw line that's about 70 feet long, so that means you'll either swim 18 down and backs or count 35 touches, whichever is easier for you to keep track. And once we wrap up the swim skills, you will move on to the next performance requirement, which is a dive. For this, you'll need to remove your snorkel and dive down head first vertically in at least 15 feet of water. When you're ready to come back up, I want you guys to just make sure to check above and around you, keeping your hand over your head for protection. And once you're at the surface, you can start breathing again or replacing your snorkel. Don't worry if all of this sounds like a lot of information right now. It'll be demonstrated first, and we'll break it down step by step. From the next up, you'll need to swim at least 80 feet horizontally underwater in one single breath. So that means no touching the surface of the water during this swim. And finally, while floating face down, you'll need to clear your snorkel using the blast method and just resume breathing without lifting your face out of the water. So that'll be it for those skills. Okay, so after we finish those skills, we'll be transitioning into our rescue exercises. So PADI standards for this course require us to follow the same rescue procedures that we would use for a rescue scuba certification, but we will obviously be modifying them to work for snorkelers. But what's important about this is the steps that we have to follow when we're performing each rescue skill, because it will be the exact same. And they're sticklers about, all the steps that you have to take. So we're going to be following those. First, we do a self-rescue, which is basically just removing a cramp in the water, and it's very simple, so we don't need to go too in depth to that. I'll show you guys in the water. Next, I'll be showing you guys videos of each individual rescue and their steps, so you can have an idea of what it looks like rather than me just tell you step by step. So for our first one, we have our tired snorkeler.
Rescue Exercise 1. Assist a tired, rational, responsive diver at the surface, demonstrating approach, evaluation, making contact, reassuring the diver, assist and transport, and equipment removal if needed. Ask the diver to inflate the BCD and drop their weights as a way of evaluating their state of mind.
So for this step, obviously, you guys aren't wearing a BCD. What we will be doing is you're going to inflate the snorkel vest. Just to make sure you're positively buoyant, or make sure you have a dive float or a dive tube, any of those emergency flotation devices, okay?
Maybe they can help themselves. Put in your regulator and approach carefully. Once you've approached the diver, make contact. Explain to them what you're doing and ask them if they're okay. There are 3 ways of assisting in transport a tired diver. Another method is the underarm tow, where you are closer to the diver, make a little bit more eye contact, but it's less streamlined. Third method of transportation is the modified tired swimmer carry. Put your regulator in, put the tired diver's fins on your shoulders, and start swimming forward.
Okay, so with the rescue exercise 1, you're going to be doing you're going to be dealing with a tired snorkeler. We will also be adding on a modified carry, where it's going to be basically putting a rescue tube between you and the snorkeler. You're going to be putting your arm under their arm and kind of dragging them, putting your hand across their chest. And I'll demonstrate this for you guys. But in terms of how PADI wants us to demonstrate these skills, we have to follow those steps basically like how you watched in the video. All right, moving on. Rescue exercise 2, a panicked snorkeler.
Rescue exercise number 2, rescuing a panicked, irrational diver at the surface. The first step is to approach and evaluate the diver, asking them to drop their weights and inflate their BCD. Most likely, they will not be responsive, so we put our regulator in and approach the diver. For surface approach, we can go around. This is a lot safer, it just takes a little bit more time. Once we go around, try to get a hold of the tank valve and cradle the tank so we can establish positive buoyancy and the panic diver hopefully turns into a tired diver. Second approach. This time we're going to try to grab the diver's opposite wrist. This is also a surface approach. Again, evaluate the diver's state of mind, ask them to establish buoyancy and put in your regulator. Make sure to grab the diver's opposite wrist, as this is a performance requirement. Spin them around, cradle the tank, and establish buoyancy for the diver and yourself. A third approach would be the underwater approach, where we put in our regulator and descend.
Obviously, we're not doing the tank cradle. They're not wearing a tank, so like I had said before, we're modifying this because PADI wants us to follow all the exact steps. I just want to show you guys these videos because it gives a good, idea of how it's going to work.
Once underwater, we're carefully going to evaluate the diver, see if we can locate the weight system and the LPI. Then we're going to go behind the diver, cradle the tank, and inflate their BCD and our BCD. Another performance.
So instead of cradling the diver, basically what we're going to be doing is just doing, like I had said before, the underarm carry and positioning a float in between you two and dragging them from behind, basically.
This requirement is to use releases to regain control. We assume the panic diver has already grabbed us, so we inflate their BCD, inflate our BCD, and push the diver up and away to release ourselves. Another technique is the quick reverse to stay out of the diver's grasp. When we approach the diver, we make sure that our feet are sticking slightly forward, so when the diver comes for us, we can kick backwards and splash water in the diver's face.
Okay, so exercise 3 is going to be response from shore, boat, or dock, and assisting a responsive snorkeler in distress. So there's a couple things that we have to demonstrate for this one.
All right, so welcome to the next video clip dealing with rescue exercise number 3, which is the response from shore, boat, or dock for a responsive diver. This is my favorite exercise out of the rescue ones because I get to take exercise number 1 and number 2 that we just covered and create little scenarios for my students as to how they're going to approach a person in the water. What you want to do here is first teach them a few things. So you're going to teach them how to do some non-swimming assists. That includes reaches, extensions, and throws. So when I prepare for this, I'm going to find that to maybe have a boat hook, something maybe not as long as this one, but I can use that to reach the diver, and I don't have to go in the water. I can do a throw, so throw something in the water, and I'm going to demonstrate a throw to you to give you some pointers on how you might explain and have your students practice that with ease. Okay? And then we're going to do some water entries. And the point of this is to enter the water while still maintaining eye contact on the victim. So for that, you basically want to teach your students that they're going to enter with bare minimum. There's going to be mask, fins, and snorkel, and then some kind of flotation device. So I would recommend that you have some kind of proper float to have with you, but you also want to teach your students that they can improvise. An inflated BCD is a flotation device. So if I was to enter here, I could enter, grab my fins, mask, and snorkel. I have a float. I enter the water without losing eye contact with the person, and then I approach them, hand them the flotation device, and now I can have them be recovered that way. So then you're doing those swimming assists with and without flotation devices. You will also do some repeat of the toes that you did in exercise. First thing, I just want to give you a couple of tips on the throwing approach. So I have, in this case, a life ring I'm going to throw. And it doesn't really matter what you have. You have a piece of rope, and then something that adds a bit of weight. Maybe it's a throw bag, maybe it's an object like this, or attach a BCD. What you want to do is make sure that the line is not tangled to begin with. And then a little tip is, wherever the end of the line is, again, make sure it's not tangled up. And this end, you can either teach that the students are standing on it, or just make sure that they hold on to it separately. Secondly, when you're about to throw the object, what most people do is they aim to the victim. And that way, most of the time you end up throwing short and they're not going to reach it. So train your students to throw over and above the victim. So I've got my line, I've got my float, I see the victim, but I'm going to look beyond and see something further away, and I'm going to aim for that. So Michael, catch this. Go way over the top, because now, as I pull the line in, it will come to him. If I threw it short, I'm going to have to pull it in quickly and then throw it back out. And once I'm at this position, keep holding on to it. Michael, you're doing great. Hold on to it, hold on to it. Don't let go, don't let go. You're doing awesome. Okay, as I come to the close to the side here, now inflate your BCD and I'll get you out of the water. And so now we can mix and match in this exercise. All right, another one of the approaches you can do is the reaching one. So this is a situation where you're on a dock or on the back of a boat or something like that, and the diver is just close enough where you could almost grab them. So if Michael was closer to me, this was a dock, I could get down here to give myself some stability and then reach out and grab him. However, if he's a bit further away, as he is here, or if I'm a smaller victim and I'm a bit worried about the size difference with the person I'm going to rescue, and maybe I'm afraid they're going to pull me in, I can use a pole, a stick, something like a boat hook, and that way I can reach out. This way, if I get scared, I can let go of this. But ultimately, Michael can now hold on to it, and I can pull in, making sure I'm nicely braced in here. All right. So this is, again, we're showing these skills in the swimming pool, and we recommend that you do that with your rescue classes as well. And again, remember, you're going to repeat all this in open water. But being in the pool lets you show many different techniques that the students can then apply in open water.
Next rescue exercise. So exercise 6 will be surfacing an unresponsive snorkeler. So we're going to be doing this in about 15 feet of water. I'm going to show you the PADI video how they do it for scuba divers, because we have to follow the same exact steps. Obviously it's going to be modified to a snorkeler, but I'm just going to show you the video so you can see kind of what it's going to look like.
Exercise 6. Surfacing the unresponsive diver. Surfacing the unresponsive diver using buoyancy control of either the unresponsive diver or the rescuer. Begin by assessing the scene and assessing whether the diver is actually unresponsive. Tap their shoulder, wave in front of their mask.
Obviously, if it's a snorkeler, you're going to be able to tell that they're unresponsive at the bottom of the ocean, so don't mind that.
Then we are going to deflate our own BCD and cradle the unresponsive diver's tank. Make sure we completely deflate their BCD and with our right hand go over or under the shoulder to open the airway. Because this is a demonstration, the regulator will be in the unresponsive diver's mouth, so we keep it there. Now, little by little, we inflate the BCD of either the rescuer.
So what's important here, what I want you guys looking at, is the position that you're going to be on the unresponsive snorkeler, you know, keeping the airway open and positioning their body like that. So when you surface them, you'll have their airway open and you'll be ready to respond to them, and then we'll be going into exercise 7.
Or the victim, just like we did in the previous exercise, slowly going to the surface while deflating the BCD little by little.
So with exercise 6, like we had just saw, what we will be doing differently is you'll have, a flotation device at the surface that you're going to place in between you guys once you get to the surface, so that way they can be positively buoyant, or you could use a vest or, whatever flotation device that you have to get on them immediately once they get to the surface. All right, next we're going to go on to exercise 7, unresponsive diver at the surface. So this is the one that has quite a few steps that we need to follow, and you need to do it in a specific order, because that's just how PADI standards are. It's very specific. Okay.
Exercise 7. Unresponsive diver at the surface. the big one. At the surface, start with some space between yourself and the unresponsive diver. Make eye contact and splash water towards the diver. Yell, "Diver, diver," inflate your BCD, drop your weights. Put your regulator in and carefully approach the diver. Once you have reached the diver, wave in front of their face, cross your hands and turn the diver on their back. At this point, you say, "Her BCD, my BCD." Go to the right hand.
For this part, it'll be if say they have a vest on, a snorkel vest on that wasn't inflated, you'll go ahead and inflate their snorkel vest, or you can place your rescue tube underneath their head or basically at the top of their shoulders so their head is positioned a little bit up out of the water.
Side and pull clear the weight belt and drop. Pull clear your own weight belt and drop. Take off her mask and take off your own mask. Take the unresponsive diver's regulator out and open the airway by tilting the head backwards. Look, listen, and feel.
Not breathing. Captain, we have an unresponsive diver at the surface. Please recall all divers, prepare emergency oxygen, and call EMS.
Flick your hands with dry, pinch the nose, and start with 2 rescue breaths. Pay special attention to supporting the head. It is the hand closest to the body that supports the head. Your hand that is furthest away from the body is the one that pinches the nose when giving rescue breaths. Then you count 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, and you give a rescue breath. Slowly remove all the unresponsive diver's gear, but leave them on their inflated BCD as a means of flotation. Then you can start removing your own BCD. When you give rescue breaths, give them on either your fingernail, your hand, or the unresponsive diver's cheek. You want to be covering an area that would be covered by a pocket mask to make the demonstration as realistic as possible. Keep in mind that during your demo, the 5 seconds are key. Equipment removal is secondary. Finish the demo with 2 rescue breaths. A special note about using the pocket mask. The entire exercise stays the same, but before you start giving rescue breaths, make sure to apply the pocket mask. Make sure it's dry and that the wide part of the mask goes over the chin, the narrow strap goes over. Make sure the pocket mask is tight. Then start off with 2 rescue breaths as you normally would and continue the exercise as normal.
Next, we have exiting an unresponsive snorkeler. Okay, one last video. We're almost done.
Exercise 8. Exiting the unresponsive diver. The requirements require you to remove both a non-breathing and a breathing diver from the water. In case of a non-breathing diver, you start by giving 2 rescue breaths, then placing the hands behind the diver on the deck, boat, or dock. Get out of the water while holding on to the hands of the unresponsive diver, ensuring that their mouth is out of the water. Take off your fins. Stand up and turn the diver around. You do this by crossing your hands before you take theirs. Use some momentum, 1, 2, 3, to get the diver on the surface. Roll them over, open their airway, and continue with rescue breaths and CPR.
So we're going to be doing Rescue 8, practicing with and without an assistance, and we're going to be doing breathing and non-breathing snorkeler at the surface. So our rescue skills are basically our last thing that we're going to be doing for day 1. So just a recap on what we're going to be doing today. It includes the skills and stamina exercises, the snorkeling and skin diving skills, and then all of those rescue skills that I just showed you on those videos. And then we will pick up on this presentation on day 2.